Hey guys, what's up? My name is Vince, licensed clinical social worker, and today I want to talk about this question. It just came into my mind while I was, working with some clients and whatnot. And the question was in my mind, why do men sit in their pain longer than women? You know, because that's very interesting. Because I'll meet guys that are maybe like 60 years old, 70 years old, and you're like, I've never told a single person this thing from my childhood. It's bothered me always. And that's really sad to hear. It's a very sad thing to hear, from any age, holding on to things. And I think that kind of pain, it's not good overall in long terms, right? It can cause like even like health effects, right? If you're like not letting go of these kinds of difficulties that you faced in your life. And it could be from any time too. It doesn't have to necessarily be from like childhood or what have you. But I think men in general sit longer with this pain because they don't communicate their feelings. They don't communicate their thoughts. And I would say on some level, and depending on like the individual, who the person is, uh, the guy, they might not be even aware of that as being an issue, right? Like ignoring it, throwing it under the rug, like because like when you grow up in an environment that maybe it has normalized some of these things we've experienced that has bothered us, maybe we don't even have words to describe um, how we feel, right? And those kinds of things really do carry into our relationships, and that can be very challenging for both parties, for the person you're with and for yourself, right? Because maybe there's things that maybe as a guy it's triggering you, but you don't know what it is, or maybe you do know what it is, but you don't want to like address it, because it's too intimate, for instance, right? And there's this thing called sublimation. I forgot who coined the term, but the idea is, we go through these kinds of difficulties in our life, like traumas and challenges, things that really, change our lives, like experiences, and the idea of sublimation is, say, for example, you had like a very challenging grade school. Maybe you had like a hard time talking to people, and maybe you're like a scrawny guy. So sublimation would be like you take those kinds of feelings that have occurred at that time, and instead of like being like sorry for yourself, or you just like look at those kinds of weaknesses, or things that you find like that you need to improve, and then you work on them across your life until those things become natural, and those things become more normalized. It becomes the things that were like the weak parts of you start becoming the strengths that you have focused on over time. So it makes you more like well balanced over the course of time. So some people can do that, sublimation. But I think a lot of guys are not doing that. That is a problem. Like not a lot of people are sublimating, I suppose. Because like you want like if you're avoiding the problem, the pain, the issue at hand, um then you're not using that energy. You're not using those experiences, you're not transforming those experiences into something that is helpful, right? um that could be for all kinds of reasons, like lack of motivation, lack of knowing, because this is not easy to navigate, I would say. I don't think this is easy to navigate. I think uh and these are generalizations, right? Like I'm not speaking for every last person on earth. Like men and women have very similar problems. Like I see both kinds of people. But I just noticed that women, just intuitively as women, they're a little bit more connected to their feelings and emotions, and they're more willing to share about them a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times, more often than men. Um, and the women that don't, they experience the same consequences as the men that don't do it in their life. Okay, so just don't forget that. But because women are able to talk about it, I think they have a better chance at working through it, or someone, at least validating their experiences. Whereas I think when, when men experience things maybe they're ashamed about or demasculate them or they're embarrassed about or they think that other people won't understand, like that again becomes like that layer that blocks them from developing the healthy relationships they probably need um, to work through the pain and to realize that, a lot of people go through the same kinds of experiences. And when you talk about these problems, it's not that they maybe go away, but they definitely become, I think, a little bit easier to live with. Like you're able to express yourself in that certain fashion, um, instead of it coming out in maybe like impulsive behaviors, for example, right? And I don't know, like I don't want to be punitive either because I don't think men are purposefully choosing to sit in their pain. Okay, I do want to make that clear. I don't think men are trying to. Like, who would want to sit like on a bed of thorns? Like I don't think I wouldn't want to unless there was like a good reason, right? Like if the that's another thing too. Like if the pain is meaningless and is hurting you all the time and is building resentment and maybe you're avoiding yourself, that could damage like maybe your perception of others if you're blaming other people for your problems, for example. Um, so yeah, I think in general, men do sit with their pain longer, which is psychologically damaging. Um, some ways to combat it. I don't want to just leave this video without any kind of resolution or anything like that. But these are just my thoughts too. I'm just thinking about it as a clinician as to like what kinds of things can happen in people's lives, and how do people deal with them differently. And in this case, like the difference between men and women is just this holding on to the pain longer. And I guess the pain, is a very subjective thing, like how painful something is, and then also the attachment to the traumatic experience. Like sometimes that becomes part of becomes part of our identity, right? Sometimes. And then if it is becomes a huge part of our identity, like the trauma becomes part of our identity, if we get let go of something like that, like I mean, what does that mean for us? Like who do we end up becoming if we don't have the trauma in our lives to kind of maybe what do you call it? Like not recall, but and I don't want to say define, but like it's something that like pushes you to act in a certain way. If like that thing didn't happen, then you wouldn't be acting in that fashion, right? Maybe, maybe. I think some easy things. Now, I'm not gonna say easy. Excuse me. I think some things that men and women can do, anyone can do, is actually journal about these difficult times in your life. You could even look up journal prompts online. Like, sometimes I have trouble just writing just free form. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to write about. Um, but you could look online for prompts so you could write through some of these things. Um, because ultimately, here's like a mindset to have, I guess. Like ultimately, you just want to feel better about things and then act according to the beliefs that you have. And it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. Like, that's what I would tell everyone. Like, and like I would tell this to my kid if I had a kid, you know? Like you want to conduct yourself according to what you believe in, right? And sometimes the pain from our past that we're sitting in for so long pushes us to act out of character, right? And that, reinforces some of that shame and some of those bad feelings. And we sit in the pain even more. Like it traps us more. Like we add more layers and, like you get trapped. Sometimes you get trapped. That's it's not a good feeling at all. Um, but when you write it down on a page, it's like releasing, like you're expressing the pain. And I feel like people do deserve to express their pain. It's a good thing just to leave it on the page. And especially if you're ruminating about it or you're it's distracting you from like functioning in your day-to-day life, then it's definitely worth your time to do. It can be a little bit tedious. You can even free speak, like say you're driving to work. just talk out loud about the things that are bothering you, you know? That'd be a good way just to just let it out. Not to focus on it. I would say let it out, don't judge your thoughts, right? And just, just try to be more reflective of, not reflective of, just like just being okay with the things that you're saying. Like, no matter, even if they're like difficult things. Maybe also say good things too. But I think that's also a good way just to release the things that are bothering us from our inside. You know, I think we kind of crave that, and I think as like a protection to ourselves, because we don't want to bring it up, but we kind of think about it in the back of our head that if we don't say it out loud, it doesn't exist. Like we're kind of like that ostrich that like puts his head into like the ground, but I mean, it just protects you from seeing the stuff. It doesn't really protect you from like the consequences of not seeing the stuff. Um, and I guess a lot of people are comfortable with that, or are just taking it. Are just like just in place, just taking it. Um, I don't want to say suffering, but definitely being uncomfortable. I mean, I'm sure definitely there's people suffering, no doubt. Um, and that's why I do believe, just adding to this, I also do believe in group therapy. I mean, that's where you heal. I do believe in support groups. And I feel like if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, there's a lot of great support groups in America. You can look up NAMI and then your county, NAMI. I'm not affiliated with these groups at all. But I do appreciate that they offer services to the community for free, virtually and in person. And the other organization is called DBSA for people that struggle with depression and bipolar. They have a lot of virtual kinds of things online, and they have some in-person things, but it depends on where you live, how close or far these things can be. So those are just my thoughts about men sitting in their own pain. I hope it helps. I hope I gave some people some some things to think about. I try not to uh, over impress upon my opinions. And I do have strong opinions, but I think I'm not trying to convince anyone of something they don't want to believe. Like, go ahead and believe what you want. But I do like to just float out these ideas. These are just ideas, and if they help, if it helps you play around with some of these things, or it helps you be more like what do you call it, self-aware, cool. If it does help you, leave a comment. I would love to hear it, like how I've helped. Or maybe you are thinking something opposite of me. I would love to hear that as well. So thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.